Welcome, listeners, to the flip side on northeastvalleynews.org. We are here at Scottsdale Community College in the newsroom. We have Sophia Linkous. We also have Preston Grace here today. Thank
Hello.
you for being here.
It's a pleasure, Oli.
We also want to thank all of our listeners and or viewers for tuning in today as well. The Flip Side is a new podcast, basically a new podcast here on northeastvalleynews.org, where we take a look at a couple of scenarios. One is usually a straight news event. The other is a sports event or a sports topic. What we do is we look at how those things are being either reported or sort of the content that's being put out there, and then we try to see it a different way as well. That's why it's called the flip side. Let's get started with today's show. A new Wall Street Journal poll just came out. They do this poll occasionally. They did it in 1998. They also asked the same questions in 2019 and then again in 2023. The numbers I'm going to be giving you for this poll are the difference between 1993 and 2023, which is what, 25 years? So there's a 25-year gap between most of these figures. The Wall Street Journal polled 1,000 Americans, and most recently they found out that money is now the most important thing to Americans. Money. We're going to go through some of these. We're going to go through some of this data and speculate as to why these numbers may have changed, and then we're going to talk about what we think is important to us as students and young people. I'm going to refer to myself as a young person.
You're young.
You're young.
Young at
Youthful.
heart. I'm youthful acting. I say I'm extremely immature for my age. That's what I say. But let's start out at the top of the list. These are the things that they asked people about in 1998 and also again here in 2023. Those are most of the numbers we're going to give. Patriotism was the most important thing to 70% of Americans in 1998. Most recently, it's only the most important thing to 38% of Americans. So this went down significantly, 40%, or at least 30%, basically. Mm-hmm. Patriotism. So what was going on in the late 90s? We were experiencing probably a surge in nationalistic thought because of the war in Afghanistan, or the Middle Eastern turmoil that was going on. Mm. We were getting involved in that. 9/11 happened after that.
Mm. Yeah.
So we weren't really involved in any of that before, really, because 9/11 was kind of the first part of why we made it, why we went over and started fighting terrorism. So scratch that. In 98, that wasn't going on. We did have a turn in sort of the way we feel about patriotism, I think. Over the kind of during the last couple of campaigns, patriotism sort of became sort of a benchmark for the Republican backers of Trump, who were, they were always kind of flying a lot of flags and make America great again. And they were very they had this sort of very patriotic theme to a lot of things. And
at one point, like, you could just have an American flag hanging from your house and they'll just automatically think that's a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Right. You were sort of labeled, if you had patriotic, if you were sort of had patriotic sympathies, you kind of became lumped into that group. Yeah. Maybe that's something that changed a little bit of that just sort of made it feel different. Yeah. And maybe that sort of,
it became more popular to sort of not like your country. That's not the right word to say it, but like
it became less expressive.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
think.
There you go.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right. You weren't sort of out there going rah rah USA USA,
Mm,
but you kind of sort of held that sort of to yourself a little bit more. I think that's what
yeah.
I feel like.
I think people got more reserved about it,
Hmm.
you know.
I think you're right, Sophia.
Hmm.
Religion. This religion is something that has sort of been seeming to become a little less important in our society as we go along. I don't know, for better or worse. In 1998, 62% of Americans stated that religion was the most important thing to them, more important than money. Most recently, that number has gone down to 39%. So similar to patriotism, actually, as well. Not sure why this is happening. That it seems like the church has sort of, I mean, during my lifetime, I've sort of seen religion become less of an overriding thing in people's lives. I think it's still important to a lot of people,
Mhm.
but I don't know that they're expressing this as much as
Yeah,
we used to.
Definitely.
I could see that.
I know it's always been very important to my family, and my folks are a little older. This may be some kind of a generational thing to
Yeah,
me
I
where
was gonna say that. I think the older people are more maybe like connected and tied to like how they feel with their religion versus like the
Mhm.
younger generation. Maybe they're not out of touch is like the wrong thing to say, but they're just
They
maybe it's
just
just not.
don't believe in a higher. I know
Yeah.
a lot more atheists than
Mm-hmm.
I do, say,
it
Catholics at
seems
this
like
point.
that's
Yeah, me
becoming the
too.
way. Like there's more doubt really as
Yeah.
to as the seems like more people are doubting the establishment kind of to me with that. I don't know if they're necessarily against religion, but I think it's more of an anti. It's kind of like it's just sort of a change in, again, it's sort of a generational thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Having kids, this one's a kind of a biggie.
Yeah.
Having kids, 98, just about 60% of Americans said that having children was the most important thing to me. That's been cut in half in the last 25 years. Now only 30% of Americans think that's the most important thing to them. This makes perfect sense to me because I'm basically against procreation and having kids. Not because, I'm lazy. I don't, well, okay, I'm lazy. I don't want to go through all that.
It's expensive too.
Kids are expensive, and
Right.
nowadays, like there was just another shooting, a school shooting where like 3 9-year-olds got shot. I think it was in Tennessee.
Nashville, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I
We're
don't know.
having to be so concerned about our kids now.
Like
I mean,
schools aren't safe anymore, and I
no,
think a
schools
lot
aren't
of
safe. It's not safe to send them outside to play. I mean,
No.
it's not. I mean, it's become very, very. Our society has become very dangerous.
And
I
the
feel like.
percentage of single parenthood has been rising ever since
Yeah.
like 2010.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And it's not easy. I mean, my mom's a single mom by choice, but I mean, growing up watching her, it wasn't easy, and I was expensive. And one person doing that alone, I mean, that's
It's
a
hard
lot
to
to
do.
juggle when you're trying to get a job in this society and everything else.
Do you think this has a little bit to do with kind of the instability of marriage in our society, where so many marriages end in divorce,
Mhm.
that maybe people are deciding to not put children in that situation
I
where
think so.
there's that choice between parents, and there's that poisoning of kids towards one parent or another, and it's just that might be a thing where there's other background factors affecting that, and it could be the cost too, like you say, Sophia. It's darn expensive to have kids, as
And
far as I know.
it never ends.
Here's an interesting one: community involvement. We talked about this a little bit in pre-production. Community involvement in 1998 was the most important thing to 47% of the 1,000 Americans polled. In 2019, that number had increased to 62%. This is one of the only factors that went up. So in 2019, 62% of Americans claimed that community involvement was most important to them. And then it plummeted to 27% from 62 to 27% since 2019.
I was saying to Sophia that is definitely because of the pandemic.
We had a feeling during
Absolutely.
our pre-production discussions that this was directly related to the fact that we all sort of got away from doing things during the pandemic. We didn't go to town meeting. We didn't have town
I
meetings.
think
We didn't.
everybody got comfortable being like alone in their house. And,
Yeah, we got comfortable with isolation.
Everyone's way more independent than they were.
Mhm.
What was that? 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Less of a feeling of community, and to be honest, we've kind of grown away from our neighbors a little bit just since. That's another generational thing too. It was very important, to my parents and their grandparents to know your neighbors, to get help to help your neighbors, to get help from your neighbors. It was more of a sort of a team effort, really. And I think that you're right. We've become more sort of an independent culture. Money, let's get to the big one. Money was most important to 31% of Americans in 98. Now it's gone up to 43%. So
I think that also has something to do with the pandemic.
I think you're right,
Yes.
Preston.
Mhm.
I mean, we were all, when the pandemic hit, all of us sort of,
Lost jobs.
right. We looked at our finances and said, oh my goodness, there's a real possibility that we could be laid off or lose our job
Yeah.
or any number of things could, especially young people, because the pandemic affected
Yeah.
So many-
affected those kind of jobs that
Yeah.
young people usually have. Service jobs
And the
is what
schools.
young
There's no
people
school.
have.
Yeah,
There
there
was
was no school.
right, there was no school. So we've got a large portion of the population, that
I
all
think
that.
we're all just stagnant. Like no school, no job.
Right. All we had to do is sit around and think about, how much money how much money do we have left? Are we going to be able to make it? What if I lose my job?
Exactly.
Can we make ends meet? What are we going to do if something bad happens financially? And I think
Right.
that's a major contributor.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
What's more important to us? I mean, are we lumped into this 43% of America? Or, I mean, do we think, Sophia, do you think the most important thing is money, or?
I don't think it's the most, for me personally, I don't think it's the most important thing. It's not my number one, but I mean, right at number, I love having financial security, like being secure. And, but I wouldn't put that above, I don't like family, for example. Like that's as long as like me and my mom are okay. That's all that matters to me at the end of the day.
Right.
But I mean, I personally do have a lot of comfort in life having financial security.
Right. You're
Yeah.
saying that family is more important.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Preston?
I agree with you, Sophia. Family is definitely my top priority, but yeah, money's definitely a priority, especially with like all the virtual currencies now. Like money's just such a big.
Yeah.
We hear about it all the time. We talk about it all the time. Crypto.currency arena is that? I mean,
It's all
right.
this
Bitcoin
crypto.
thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
So
It's
I
everywhere.
think that's why a lot of Americans are saying that money is super important, but not to me.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with fulfillment, to be completely honest. I've done a lot of jobs in my life. Like I say, I'm not consider myself young, but I'm really not. But I've done a lot of jobs in my life, and the times that I was most happy in my life are the times that I've been doing something that was personally fulfilling.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that's the most important thing. It's not an option on this particular question, but I'm going to pick it.
But it applies to
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
Let's move on to the flip side of sports. Let's quit talking about the importance of money, although that might come into this too. Let's flip over to the flip side of sports. The World Baseball Classic just wrapped up. The championship game was March 21st. Lo and behold, Japan beat the good old US of A 3-2 to win the World Baseball Classic championship. Preston, this is a tournament that's been going on since 2006, so it's relatively new in the as far as we consider sports tournaments. This is something similar to the Olympics that takes place every 4 years,
or the World Cup soccer,
football, right? Similar to the World Cup as well. In the past, this is what's happened since 2006. Interestingly enough, the good old US of A, which is, when we talk about baseball, we think America, it's America's pastime. It's America's sport, et cetera, et cetera. The US of A won the World Baseball Classic in 2017. The Dominican Republic won it in 2013. All the rest of the times, 2006, 2009, 2023, it has been won by Japan. Imagine that. So is this are we seeing a shift here in the world baseball powers? What do we got? What do you think about this, Preston?
I'm going to say yes to your question, because Japan, they take baseball more seriously than America does. Like, America is usually, everyone loves football. You won't find
we got a lot of options here, don't we?
You won't find a lot of people that hate football, but you can find a lot of people that hate baseball in this country. But if you go to Japan, man, baseball is their sport. They are so passionate about baseball down over there. So I think just all their passion is being able to win 3 World Baseball Classics and topping America in one of them.
3 of them. Well, I guess they didn't. I don't know if they played the USA in the championship game of those others. It may or may not
I think
have.
they played Cuba and like Peru and not Peru, Venezuela, and the other one.
Okay, but they did top us.
They did top America
in this year's for sure.
Yeah. And the thing with America this year is we just struggled to get our star pitchers to want to play. When Japan, it's like it's an honor to play for your country, and in America, it almost seems like it's a chore to them to play for their country.
Yeah.
Right. We take that stance in a number of things. The Ryder Cup, several years, a number of years ago, there was scuttlebutt during the Ryder Cup about certain players wanting to be paid to play in it, et cetera, rather than just doing it for the love of representing your country.
Yeah. And that's what it should just come down to.
So that might be a factor. Preston, we also had some interesting conversation this morning when we were going over this topic about the number of American players that are leaving MLB and going over and playing in Japan, a lot of times for less money.
Yeah, and it's honestly not surprising because, like I said, they take baseball way more seriously, and they don't have a minor league system, so you won't have to spend your first 4 or 5 years of your baseball career trying to make the major leagues. When you can just go down to Japan and boom, you're already there playing, making a lot of money. And minor leaguers do not get paid a lot. They get paid like less than $3,000 a month.
Right. Wow. Yeah. It's
sad. And I know Rob Manfred, the commissioner of MLB, is trying to help that, but I don't know how much there is helping that.
So this could be there could be a financial element of those players going over there, but we did kind of figure out that they do make considerably less money in Japan. Most players do anyway.
Yeah, their currency is the yen, I believe, and that currency is like way less than the dollar. So
right, but still, the payrolls. We kind of looked at some of the payrolls of professional Japanese teams, and they're by and large significantly less than American baseball.
The major leagues.
So there's a reason why American players are going over to Japan and playing, and it may not it's not necessarily money. Some of these players,
I think it's like, I'm not well known in baseball, but if you spend your life and you work your way up and you want to play this sport that you love, I don't think it would come down to money at the end of the day. It's like you want to have like your country support you and you want to support your country, and like, why not just, Japan sounds great. Why not?
Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that as a professional athlete. If I had to choose between I guess, getting paid a little bit more, but not being as appreciated.
Yeah.
That might become a big factor. Some of it has to do with behavior. I mean, there's a few athletes that have gone over to play in Japan because for very, simply they weren't welcome here anymore.
Most recently, Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, Trevor Bauer signed a pretty good contract, or in if you compare it to other Japanese professional players, he signed a very lucrative contract.
Yeah, he did.
And one of the reasons may be just because of the controversy that's been around Mr. Bauer in the past years. So there's that, and like I say, there's if you feel more appreciated, that's a great reason to go somewhere and do something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good. Well, keep an eye on Japan. I mean, this is an interesting, to me, it's a very interesting sort of shift of power in the sports world, from in something that we maybe wouldn't expect,
Mm-hmm.
So keep an eye on Japanese baseball, and also keep an eye on your favorite players from the US. You might see them go over there, start playing. We want to thank everybody for watching us today or listening, whatever you're doing, to this podcast today. We'd also like you to follow us on social media, if possible, on TikTok and Twitter. You can follow us at NE Valley News. If you're into Instagram or Facebook, check us out at northeastvalleynews.org, all spelled out. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Preston, for being here today. Thank you to our viewers for checking us out. And we will be back in 2 weeks. This is our new schedule now. We do this every 2 weeks, not every week. And then we have a different segment that we do in between called Students Talk Back, which you can check out on our site at nevalleynews.org. Thanks, everyone, for being here, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.